Heavenly Father, today we put on the full armor to protect us against attack. We put on the belt of truth to protect against lies and deception. We put on the breastplate of righteousness to protect our hearts from the temptations. We put the gospel of peace on our feet to walk in your light, peace, and freedom with the Holy Spirit. We rebuke anxious thoughts. We take up your shield of faith for protection to block and destroy all the darts and threats thrown at us by the enemy. We put on the helmet of salvation to cover our minds and thoughts, reminding us that we are children of a mighty King. We are forgiven, set free, saved by the blood of Jesus. We take up the sword of the Spirit, your living word, that has the power to demolish strongholds and is sharper than any double-edged sword. We come to you, Lord, in prayer daily. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I like that prayer.
Thank you. I do too. Bring this in. Okay. What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm honored to introduce you all to multi-generational sexual abuse survivor, technology sales extraordinaire, aspiring singer and songwriter who dreams of bringing to life music to help empower other survivors, animal and child rescue advocate, and whistleblower of what I will be referring to as the original Pizzagate scandal involving a suspicious pizza delivery company called CyberSlice, and my new beautiful friend, Madison Clares. Madison was born a twin to a father who was the co-founder of the first online pizza delivery company called CyberSlice, and who would also allege that he was an ex-CIA assassin, and she and her twin sister spent their first 6 weeks of life being hospitalized after being born prematurely. Madison discovered through her investigation since waking up to her abuse that her family line is laden with occult, military, and CIA influence and connections, and that the oddities and abuse in Madison's family date back at least a few generations, tracing back to her great-grandfather, who was a Freemason, and trickling all the way down the family line to her and her twin sister. Madison recalls her abuse starting as early as 4, where she can remember memories of her father and his business partner in their joint company called CyberSlice having her stripped naked while they sexually molested and abused her. CyberSlice was the first online pizza ordering service, and Madison's father would often be absent from home on business trips, catering to high-end clientele like his biggest client, Bill Gates. Madison recalls how it was interesting how her father would go from being playful to violent so quickly. When he'd assault her, he'd always do it with so much joy that sometimes Madison would forget that he was a monster, although her father was not a joyful person. Her father would also force her and her sister to do sexual acts to each other, and he would record and use those recordings to lure in other predators into CyberSlice. He would offer free videos and photos of Madison and her twin in exchange for them using the CyberSlice platform. His platform was for online pizza ordering, but as Madison discovered, the word pizza was actually her father's code word for little girls and is also a proven code word for little girls, according to the FBI. And the rabbit hole goes even deeper. Inspiration for CyberSlice began with a movie called The Net, starring Sandra Bullock, and in an interesting chain of events, Apple Incorporated founder Steve Jobs was the first person to place an order for online pizza using CyberSlice's online platform after helping develop the app during a brief hiatus from Apple that he took in the late 1980s through the early 1990s. Madison's repressed memories of her abusive childhood began surfacing around the age of 14, and ever since, she has been working on putting together the pieces of the mysterious events of her life that flew under the radar of her and her siblings as children. Madison hopes that going public with her story will help her to get custody of her 12-year-old brother, as the FBI, police, and CPS have been literally useless despite the evidence Madison has presented. Madison also hopes her testimony and public disclosure helps other survivors come forward, help shed a light on what's going on in our world right now, and helps bring justice to all of the victims. In Madison's own words, quote, "I was very afraid, but God spoke to me and said that those who sit back and do nothing carry the children's blood on their hands. So I knew it was time to use my voice and start taking action. I knew he was convicting me, and I'm more afraid of God's wrath than the wrath of these sick child pedophiles. I also want these sickos to know that God is coming for them with all the heavens armies, and it is their time to fear. And I have to say that I'm so confident in justice being served with soldiers like Madison on the front lines. All, so please put away everything you're doing and give this incredible woman, sister, and warrior your full attention as we take a deep dive into the original Pizzagate and learn how the dark web has not only influenced but proliferated human trafficking on a mass scale, starting perhaps with a slice of pizza. Before I finish introducing today's guest, I wanted to give just a couple quick reminders and updates. If you'd like to be on the show, share any information privately with me, or send me a written testimony for my upcoming book series or to be written on a Substack article, you can email me at imagineabetterworld2020@gmail.com. I've also partnered with a couple of my favorite brands to get you guys a couple discount codes on some of my favorite products, including Rife Technology, Frequency Machines, and Blockers, and CZTL's high quality methylene blue. Treat yourself to holistic health at a better price with brands you can trust. All of the rest of my links are in the show notes as well, you guys, and I'd love your support across all platforms. Thank you all for helping to make the imagination the safest space on the internet for survivor, whistleblower, advocate, and educator disclosures. So, you guys, without further ado, please help me in welcoming today's guest of honor, survivor, overcomer, voice for the voiceless, walking miracle, warrior, and a hero on a mission to blind the darkness with her light and to dedicate all the royalties in her music career to create a foundation called The Bridge that will help bridge the gap between the FBI and human trafficking. The one, the only, Madison Clares. Madison, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. Oh my gosh, your introduction had me tearing up. So sorry about that.
Oh, don't
I
be.
was like, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. And then you started sharing all these like amazing things about me, and it was like, oh my gosh, wow.
It's easy to forget, amidst all the trauma, it's like, it's really amazing what you and others have overcome. And I know it can be so easy to get wrapped up in all of the heaviness. And so
It
it's
is, yeah.
sometimes to just hear, wow, like I'm actually, like I've done a lot with my life. And, I,
Yes. And wow, there are people on my side who consider me a friend.
yes,
Because
and who believe in you.
a lonely, lonely ride for a while, I should say. Um,
You,
Getting out of my father's house, like my path got very lonely. But I also made a lot of amazing friends like you, so I'm grateful.
this road is very isolating. Like it's weird, in real life, we're so artificial. Like I notice it more and more. When you go to the store and you see you're getting your groceries and the person ringing you out is like, how are you doing? And our response is just great. And I'm like, but wait, like I'm not always great, but like why do I just say that? Like we just feel pressure
Yeah.
to like be always this like positive, uplifting version of ourselves when like it can be really heavy not being able to share the hard things that we go through, which are actually the it's actually the truth and the things that would like unite us more. So I really appreciate you coming on today. I know that a lot of the things that you have gone through aren't positive and like uplifting things, and they're things that you never deserved, Madison. On the other hand, it's beautiful to see the difference that you're now making and the aspirations that you have to continue to make a difference in the world, to help other survivors and to help your family. I know that there's goals that you have even within your own family. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. And, this is a story when I read your the biography that you sent me about this and explained a little bit about it, I could not believe that I hadn't heard of this and that this wasn't something that's as well known or more known than the whole Pizzagate scandal. That is something that we can't seem to even get away from. It's just like this rotating word that just, sort of covers up everything. So I was really excited to have you come on and educate us on this other scandal that flew completely under the radar, had a ton of big names behind it, was a really big deal historically and for sort of the chaos and confusion and disgusting um, acts that were going on behind the scenes, and to see how that's evolved and like I think it's a piece of the puzzle to see how we got to where we are now. So why don't we go back to maybe before you and your twin were born, and sort of outline anything generational in your family that would sort of set the stage for you guys being born and kind of pushed into this abuse, whether it was secret societies or abuse that you know of through your mother or father's side, and maybe just paint a little bit of a picture of what your family history was like.
Yeah, definitely. So I know on my father's side, he claims that his mother and his father were abusive towards him, like emotionally, physically, verbally, a lot of substance abuse on their side. So he says, I don't really know that to be true because my relationship with them has always been um, distant. Like I never really got to know them as intimately as he knew them. Um, and also like people change. Like I've never noticed substance abuse in my grandparents, but that doesn't mean just that it didn't happen. So I know that his grandfather was a Freemason and he had a monarch tattooed on his right shoulder. So my father got a monarch tattoo because of that. And um, like my father used to joke too that like people would think that he was an assassin because he had a monarch tattoo on his shoulder. And that's also why I think that he might be telling the truth that he did used to be an assassin for the CIA. When CyberSlice was went out of business because the dark web was created, he was getting blackmailed by a lot of people, and I'm kind of suspicious that the CIA did recruit him as punishment, like to come work for him, because I know that happens a lot where instead of actually putting people in prison, they'll recruit them as like to work for them because of the information that they have and turn them into an asset instead of um, a prisoner. And just because I've taken this to the police, the FBI, and nothing has happened, like these are my own conclusions that I've drawn. So um, my mom's mom and her relationship with her family was also very rocky, and I think that's why she was drawn to my dad. I mean, that's why she's even told me that she was drawn to my dad, because he was 12 years older than her and he had wealth and power, and like um she didn't have to work and she wanted to start a family and have kids, and he was able to provide that for her. So um I think like that's kind of the dynamic that brought them together. um Sorry, I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything else, but I think that's it as far as their background.
And do you know if anybody else besides the grandfather had any affiliations with Freemasonry or anything like that? Or was he the only one that you know of that went through that?
He's the only one that I know of, and I don't know if he was one of the good guys or the bad guys. I mean, my dad, he was my dad's hero. Um, and I don't really know when my dad became a bad guy. I don't know if he was ever a good person. I mean, my aunt says that there was a time when they used to have fun together and they used to laugh, and he isolated us from his entire family, and my mom did the same thing. Like I didn't have a relationship with anybody outside of my mom and my dad once they had us. Like I mean, I probably met my well, I mean, I met my grandma like twice out of the entire time I lived with them, which was 20 years. So I mean, maybe three times that I saw her, and like I didn't talk to her regularly. So, like, my relationship with all of my family members, besides my like besides my parents and my siblings, I'm talking about like cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents. It was very isolated. I hardly ever heard from them.
That's really sad. And I mean, not just for you, but to have sort of a broken family in that way. Sometimes it's uh I'm sure for you, like you hear about, and your friends probably would always talk about having all these memories with other members of their family. And that had to have been hard as a kid to not be able to relate to that, and to be like, what's going on with my family? I don't get to see anybody. It's really sad to think about that. And I'm really happy that you had siblings growing up in a sense to sort of help with that loneliness a little bit. But I know it was really difficult for all of you. And that started right with your birth. Like you came into the world with a really traumatic situation. And I wanted to see if you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was 6 weeks premature, and my lungs weren't fully developed all the way. In fact, my doctors didn't even think that I was going to live. And they told my mom when she was mm, 3 months pregnant to abort me and my twin sister because they said, in like, my mom quotes that we were going to be like blind, deaf, and dumb, and that we would never, um, like, we would never even be able to have our senses, and that we would just be an abomination to society. Like, that was what the doctor quote on said. And my mom told them, how dare you, like, you don't know the God that I have. And one thing I love about my mom is that she taught me about God from the moment I was born. And even though she's still married to my dad, and I mean, I actually feel sorry for her because truly I think she is a victim in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's one thing I am grateful to her for. Is, did I say that right? Grateful to her for, I don't I don't know. I'm nervous.
That was great. You're doing great. It sounded perfect.
Okay, I'm hard on myself too. Um yeah, I am grateful to her because she taught me about God, and she like raised me to believe and have a mindset of faith versus fear. Even if I didn't even if I didn't use that mindset of faith, it kind of created a foundation for me, like in my adult life, to lean into that faith and to go, oh, wait a second here. I do know God, and I do have God here in my life present, and I can, like, it's a tool that I can tap into.
That's really sweet. Did you have, I shouldn't say you, is there twins that are on either side of your mother's or father's family? Or was that sort of an anomaly with you and your sister?
I'm pretty sure it was an anomaly. I I want to say there's twins somewhere in my family, but I can't remember where. So I want to say it's an anomaly. Um, I feel like there are twins like far, far back on my mom's side, but it's so far back that it most of the time with twins it skips a generation. Like, um, so that means her grandma would have had to have been a twin, and her grandma was not a twin, or her grandpa wasn't a twin. So I I'm pretty sure there is a history of twins in my family, but it's not. Um, it's like way too far back for
Interesting.
it to be like a generational thing.
Gotcha. I'm always fascinated with that because it does seem like it's either one way or another. It's like just some random anomaly, or there's like a very consistent pattern with that. So that's kind of interesting about your story, that it was a little bit more random, and just how traumatic that was for you and your family to go through a birth like that, where it seems like all these different things seemingly went wrong, even though they at the end it turned out to be more than fine. You guys obviously came out and grew up to be very healthy. There wasn't signs of, Down syndrome or whatever they were saying that you guys would have to have to deal with for the rest of your life. So that was really brave of your mom to go against that and to, stand up for you.
Yeah, and I respect that too because I don't know if I would be able to do that, honestly. Like, if a doctor told me your kid is going to be blind, deaf, and dumb, I don't know if I could, I don't know if my faith could carry me through that, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, I want to say that it would, but you just never know until you actually live out that experience.
100%. I completely agree with you, especially these days where it's so uh common, I guess, like it's promoted to have abortions more than ever. Like it's almost advertised. And so I feel like back then too, it probably wasn't something that was done as much or at least not talked about as much. And so that would have definitely been a lot of pressure to not have probably been quite as informed as like we are now, where we get to see and really understand the process, where back then it was, a lot different without all the internet and stuff like that to connect that we have now. So incredible story with that, and again, very interesting that you were a twin. That seems to also be not a consistency necessarily around a majority of survivors, but there obviously is a fascination with that, from the trauma-based mind control side, and sort of what they value in some of these children that get selected for these different organized abuse situations, which obviously you and your sister were brought into unbeknownst to you. So let's talk about your childhood a little bit. Your abuse started really early. Do you have memories before that started, and sort of what it was like living with both your parents, and what was your parents' relationship like?
My parents' relationship, I can remember them fighting like from the age of 4. That's the earliest age that I have memories is like I know I wasn't in school yet, so I was 4 years old. Um, and they would fight a lot, and my mom would oftentimes lock herself up and cry, and she would like lock me and my twin sister out, and she wouldn't want to talk to us. In fact, um, she would neglect us a lot because of the fights they would have. And I don't blame her for that because I know how violent my dad is. But there were times where I mean, many times where I didn't eat all day, I didn't drink all day because of that. And so, like, sometimes the only time I got something to drink was because my older sisters early in the morning would get me juice or milk before they left for school. And then I would just have to eat out of like a peanut butter jar or eat like bread or cheese that was already cut up. I would basically have to like feed myself at a pretty young age. So, um, my sisters are my heroes and they know that.
Aw. How
um,
Like that's such a
and
big responsibility too for a child to like have to think of like an adult, like how to take care of yourself when that you should have that being provided by the adults in your house.
yeah, and I remember even being angry at her at that age, like knowing like, hey, this is your job and you're failing. So I never really had a good relationship with my mom. I was always angry at her, and um, it wasn't until I was an adult where I started to actually feel sorry for her and go, wow, this woman has been through a lot and she's a victim too. And like that helped me to heal and move on. And even to forgive my dad and just see him as a sick person. Um, it was hard for me to even bring this to the public eye because deep down, I mean, he's my dad, and of course, I saw moments and had moments where he was good to me, but at the end of the day, like he's murdered children, and I don't. I know that thousands, maybe millions of kids are dead because of him, and like something needs to be done. So, um, sorry, did I answer your question? I don't. I
Yes,
think I
you
started
did.
going off track.
No, this was all really important, and this is all going to build on the conversation that we're going to have. So thank you for sharing all of that. I always think it's interesting if I were to meet you on the street, Madison, and just like have an interaction with you, I'd never guess the family that you came from and like the neglect that you had and the things that you had to see, and it's really a testament to how far you've come, but it really shows just you can't judge a book by its cover. Abuse doesn't like look a certain way. And oftentimes it can, from the outside, look almost perfect if you're not privy to what's going on behind the scenes. Like these families like to have a public persona and a presence, and it's very different behind the scenes. And you probably had one of those families, where people looked at it, especially with your dad's businesses and accolades, and if he had money, and there was probably like this misconception of who he was. And it's really important that we paint the scene for what abuse really looks like, that it can look glittery and shiny and good on the outside, and beautiful. But behind the scenes, it can be really dark and ugly, and I feel like your dad was one of those people that uh, had that, that sort of double life thing, especially with some of the things they say about being in the CIA as an assassin, and with this business that we're going to talk about too, which he began very early in your life. Do you want to explain about CyberSlice when that came to fruition? Give us a background on, how did your dad get into this, and what is CyberSlice, and let's dive into it.
Um, so my father created CyberSlice back in the 90s, and before that, you couldn't order pizza online. You could only make a phone call. So it was like groundbreaking at the time. And um, like that's what it was to the public, but to his clients and to the founders, even too, because even the founders assaulted me. Um, and my dad was a co founder, but he had other founders as well. So like to the public eye, yeah, you were ordering pizza online, but they had other codes involved too, where that only they knew about, so that you know the random person isn't getting like child pornography by placing a pizza order online. I get that so much from haters. They're like, "How does that work?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, dude, you can't be that stupid." I'm sorry. I don't mean to be offensive. I get a lot of hateful comments. It gets pretty exhausting.
Yes,
Uh,
I get that too from people, and it's really discouraging, that people can't listen to this information and like consider it. They blow it off without listening, and
yeah, their immediate reaction is to call me crazy or schizophrenic, and I guess it's hurtful to me because that was like some of the terms my parents used to get out of this when it started getting pretty serious when CPS and police were investigating. So um, yeah, it stings a little bit. Um,
and so
but he went out of business when I was probably about 5 years old. So he told me it was because the dark web was created. And I still remember when he was like panicking, freaking out. And my mom was trying to calm him down, and he would not listen to her. And also, he had a huge substance abuse problem. And my mom has told me that um, he spent a lot of his money on prostitution, um, and that she found child pornography on his computer, and um, considered leaving him because of it. But he told her he was going to track her down and kill her if she left him, and like kill my siblings. So she didn't leave him. This was in 2007 that she was going to leave him. Um, So, anyway, sorry, back to that. The dark web put him out of business, and he was getting blackmailed by his own clients. I honestly think that was his karma because he lost most of his wealth after that and struggled to even find work after he sold his business to food.com. The recession hit, and he was like out of work for a couple years after that. And I think the CIA recruited him during that time that the dark web became the way that these pedophiles would like exchange photos and videos, because during that time he was always um always late from work. My mom had no idea where he was. He wouldn't communicate with her where he was. He would go to other countries. Um, there was just like, even like a very dark, evil energy that he would come home with, and there it was just something off about his demeanor. Very secretive, and like, of course, people are secretive when they're having affairs too. But um, it was it's deeper than that. I don't really know if I can put that into words, but when he told me that he was an assassin for the CIA, I actually believed him just because of that, um, because of those memories I have growing up with him during that time frame. Um, and he just knew way. He's always known way too much about um, very controversial topics like aliens and stuff like that. He's just always known far too much that even I would sometimes question when he was having a conversation with me. I would wonder, like, what do you actually do for work? Because I mean, just crazy stuff. I won't get into too much of that now, but I mean, even he would tell me about like celebrities who sold their souls to the devil. I'm like, how do you know all these things? How do you know all these celebrities who sold their souls to the devil? And he would explain to me like these ritualistic things, and like what happens when you sell your soul to the devil, and like the steps that come after that. And he even told me, once you sell your soul to the devil, you never get it back, and that if you do want it back, um, that death is actually required to get your soul back. So like physical death here on earth. So um I don't see how he could have known all those things if he didn't have affiliations, and if it was just a bluff and like a tactic to scare my siblings and scare my mom, then why has the FBI and the law enforcement not done anything despite me having evidence? Like, it just seems like truly does have those CIA connections. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over the place here too, but he even had witnesses assassinated, and he claims that they were assassinated by CIA, and they all of the witnesses hung themselves. So I find that very mysterious. Um, and days before one of the witnesses was assassinated, Trevor Orr was his name. It was my mom's ex boyfriend. He, I was blackmailing Trevor, or no, I was blackmailing my dad pretending to be Trevor. And then days later, this man killed himself. And my dad even said that because he was an assassin for the CIA, he had connections and he got them to get a secret plane ticket to fly to Trevor and point a gun at his head and tell him, we're going to kill you um, if you don't kill yourself, and we're also going to kill the rest of your family. So I mean, like, either way he was going to end up dead. So I really don't believe he actually killed himself. Even his family was shocked that he killed himself. Same thing with my 12-year-old neighbor, because CPS was investigating at the time, and she hung herself on her own horse equipment at 12 years old. Happiest kid in school, most popular kid at the school. Like, they had a whole ceremony for her after she died at New Brighton Middle School. Like, it was tragic. The whole community was shocked. Her sister, her mom, her dad, like, nobody could believe that she took her own life. I couldn't even believe that she took her own life. And I even heard my parents conspiring days before she ended up dead. Like, in my mom asking my dad, like, has it been done yet? Has it been done yet? And I was like, has what been done yet? Has what been done yet? And then my twin sister said, oh my God, Becca's dead. Our neighbor's dead. And like, the look that my parents were giving each other was like, confirmation right there. But I even heard them talking about it like days prior. And they kept telling me that I was schizophrenic and that I was crazy and that I was hearing voices. And I was only 17 years old. And I actually thought to myself, you know what? I hope to God I'm hearing voices right now, because this is hell. And I cannot imagine if this is actually going on. Like, I would rather I would rather be psychotic or schizophrenic or delusional or whatever than actually have my own father and mother like be responsible for this. So that was kind of my way of even dealing with a lot of these events, is either telling myself I'm crazy or just blocking it out of my memory. Like, those were my coping skills. That was all I had. I didn't have any other coping skills.
Which is so common, the dissociation thing. It's a defense mechanism, but it seems to also be something that trauma survivors can tap into even outside of abuse and just sort of as an escape too. And it's amazing that our bodies can do that, but it also definitely makes it tough when you can't remember things or
Yeah,
and
sure.
just having that sort of separation from yourself growing up, which I know that you had a lot of. And so let's go back to age 4 was also when your abuse started. And it wasn't just your father, but it was somebody else in the company. And there might have been more people. But I'd like to dive into that a little bit. Tim Glass, I know, was somebody involved with that. And I'd like to sort of paint the picture of, so CyberSlice was this sort of revolutionary company you could order online. Could you talk a little bit about your dad, how he got into that, and sort of how the other people in the company at the time and how he knew them, and kind of the ground roots beginnings of how this got started and who was involved, because this all impacted you.
Yeah, so the co-founders were Steve Green, Tim Glass, Jim Brimhall, and my dad, Brian Cups. And uh, it doesn't say this on the internet, but I know that I mean, not Steve Green, sorry, Steve Jobs was also um, a founder.
Interesting.
So he helped to take CyberSlice off of the ground and get it going. So yeah, he was the first customer, but he had a lot more involvement than just being the first customer. They spoke very highly of him, and um, I went to their headquarters a few times, and I mean, Steve Jobs was like a god to them. It was like they worshiped him, the way they would talk about him. And it was always like Steve Jobs, like. So I I don't know how Steve Green, Tim Glass, Jim Brimhall, how they all got to meet each other. Um, I don't know much about that. I do know that my dad pretty much was into computers like at a pretty early age. Like, he told me that he only went to school for 2 years and got his associate's degree um, in California, and then basically purchased a computer and was able to teach himself everything about computers just from his own computer. Like, he was able to teach himself more than he learned in school. And I mean, my dad is a genius, and I'm not saying that like in an egotistical way. I mean, I'm honestly afraid of him, like, and the power of his mind. He is somebody who shouldn't be underestimated. And I remember even when I was like 6 or 7 years old, he designed this, like, pretty much designed the iPhone and said, "Hey, look what I created." Tried to sell it to investors, and they told him, "You're so stupid. Nobody will ever buy a computer like the size of this." And like, look where we are today. Like, he's always been ahead of his time. Just an evil genius, sincerely.
How did he meet Steve Jobs?
That I don't know either. He never told me how they met. And I think something happened between them, because after CyberSlice, Um, they never stayed in touch after that. So I have my own theories about this. I'm not sure that Steve Jobs knew what was going on. Steve Jobs never assaulted me, at least not. I don't have any memories of that. I think that Steve Jobs was how they got big investors in, like big clients in, like Bill Gates and Hillary Clinton. And I think when Steve Jobs found out what was really going on, that's why Bill Gates and Steve Jobs had this bad blood, because Steve Jobs is actually a really spiritual person from what I know about him. So I have a hard time believing at the same time as I'm at the same time as I'm standing up for him. I have a hard time believing that you're involved with these founders and you don't know what the business is actually being used for to bring in profit. Like, I have a hard time believing that. But then at the same time, like, I know I have also been, like, I myself have been fooled by my father. So I can't really speak for certain on that, but I don't I think it should be investigated because his name is on there.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And yeah, it is a confusing situation. And
And
even
they're saying how Steve Jobs changed the way we sell pizza. I mean, they're giving him credit for that. So,
we know with mind control that people can have different alters. So you could see somebody and they're acting one way, maybe he treated you one way, and maybe behind the scenes he was different. I'm not assuming anything, but it is difficult to, try to excuse that all these people are working together and like that any of them were completely oblivious to that there was something bubbling below the surface that was kind of dark. So I think it's good to at least use discernment. We can't say one way or another potentially, but I think it's very telling, especially that it's pizza. Like, what a random thing to like come together for, knowing what that is,
mhm.
and that all these adults weren't able to put that together, that there was something really bad happening. I could see maybe not everybody knowing if that was the case, but I think it does, it begs to have a lot of questions answered. So I think it's very fascinating that there were all these sort of powerful men that came together over a pizza project, a pizza app, and how, like you said, they give Steve Jobs the credit for it. Like your dad and Tim Glass aren't on the front of this. It's Steve
Yeah,
Jobs.
and my dad was the one, my like they all had their own roles. Jim Brimhall. So my dad is getting back into the pizza industry and he has articles about this, about his uh brewery root beer that he wants to create, and that, I mean, he already is creating. And I was living with him at the time when he was trying to get back into this pizza industry. Of course, at this time I was still um I was still lying to myself and saying, that this is not actually what's going on. I'm just crazy. Like, I was not the person that I am today. Like, I've had to do a lot of work and a lot of healing to get to where I am today. And Jim Brimhall is the investor my dad is going to use for Cups Beer Root, and maybe things have changed since then, but that was what the plan was at the time when I left his house. And Steve Green was the connection to the pizzerias. And Tim Glass, I don't know what's going on with him anymore. I didn't hear his name come up in this conversation with, uh, as far as it goes um, for his root beer. But I just have my own memories of Tim Glass, like, and my father, you know, jacking off to me peeing on the toilet and having me take all my clothes off. Like, and that's another thing too is my mom said that he would go to prostitutes and like have them pee on him. So it's like a kink of his. And I'm sure the FBI could prove that alone off of his search history. Like, my dad is a dirty, gross man. Like, even my own mom is disgusted by him. And they don't even have consent in their relationship. Like, um, if he wants it from her, she has to give it to him. Like, that's their arrangement. And, she provides him sex and he provides her money. And she's basically a prostitute.
Oh my gosh. That had been so confusing growing up with that too, having sort of a passive mother, and a father that seems very controlling and coercive and charming at the same time, and not necessarily joyful, just has this facade where
No,
people respect him.
it makes me sick that the only time that he ever really showed any like joy was when he was like assaulting me. Like, other than that, he was just a miserable drunk, like, and drug addict. Like, he did a lot of cocaine, he drank a lot, he got out of a DUI. He should have had a DUI, but he got out of it. Just a horrible person. Now I know, and like, he has always struggled with finances too. And even my mom would say, how do you make all this money and like you can't save any money? And it's because of his like porn addictions. Um, and like, when I left, he was filing for bankruptcy because he hasn't paid his taxes since God knows when. And the IRS was coming after him saying, you can't own a home, you can't own a car, like, you can't own anything because if you own it, we're going to take it from you. And we're going to start, what's it called? When they actually like take it out of your wages. So that's when he started filing for bankruptcy because he realized, like, oh, garnishing your wages, that's the term. Yeah. So as far as I know, he's filed for bankruptcy. And I mean, his life is he's pretty much going to have to work until he's dead because he has no savings. So it cracks me up when people call me like, one of the biggest hateful comments I see repeatedly on my stuff is like, you're just a trust fund baby who stopped getting money from your daddy and now you're just trying to become famous. And I'm like, bitch, sorry.
No, you're good. Let it
I've
out.
had to literally climb my way, like, from the bottom to the top, and I'm not even at the top yet. I would say I'm, like, middle class, um, everything I have is because I've had to work my ass off for it. Like, I am not my mother, I am not my father. So, like, nothing more needs to be said there. Was literally making $14 an hour when I left his house. And I was like, you know what? I would rather be homeless than continue to wake up with my underwear on inside out. Because when I left, I was 21 years old. And he was telling me aliens were coming into the house to turn on the. I can't even. When I say this out loud, I'm like, this is so embarrassing that I actually believed him at one point in my life. But like, I wanted to believe him. Like, I wanted to believe, yeah, aliens are coming into my room and turning my underwear on inside out. And like, it's so embarrassing. But yeah, my twin sister still lives there, fully believes that aliens are the reason that her underwear is on inside out. But like, also, I was brainwashed my whole life, like, born into a trafficking situation, like, drugged my whole life repeatedly. At one point when I was 14, they found GHB in my urine and asked me about it. My mom covered it up and said it was because I was sneaking out and partying, but I had actually not been like, I partied every now and then, but I had not partied then at that time that they found it. And they even said, have you gone to a party in the last 3 days? And I was like, no. Like, I was like, I don't know how it's there. And so my mom covered it. Like, I was like, yeah, I went to a party like 6 weeks ago. Is it from that? Like, I didn't know how long GHB stays in your system and what it even was. I thought, is it just I when they said GHB in your system, I was like, "Is that marijuana?" Like, I didn't know what it was. And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I went to a party 6 weeks ago, and my psychiatrist was like, because my parents were forcing me to see a psychiatrist because sorry, I'm going all over the place again, but my twin sister came forward when we were 14 and said he had molested us. And I was like, I have no memories of that, but I believe you because he's a violent, crazy person. And um, so, anyways, I was like, I don't know what that is. And they're like, honey, that can't stay in your system for 6 weeks. It can only stay in your system for 3 days. How did that get in your system? And my mom was like, oh, she snuck out of the window last night. She was partying and I hadn't. So I was trying to get medical records to prove that. And they sent me back documents that were missing from the time that I received care. I mean, insurance records would literally prove that too, that I had gone and had a urinalysis done because the psychiatrist they were forcing me to see at that time, um, because my dad was claiming that both me and my twin sister were mentally ill, and that's why we were coming forward with those statements. And even told my twin sister if she didn't take her statement back, that he was going to turn her into a vegetable for the rest of her life, and that she would be in a hospital for the rest of her life, like a vegetable. Like he would hit her so hard that she would become a vegetable. So she took her statement back like after 3 days of, and he wasn't allowed to come home during this investigation. I mean, I still remember the detective who was investigating and like being interviewed by CPS. And um, so yeah, that's why we were being forced to see a psychiatrist. And I mean, at that point, I was grateful because I was like, you know what? Yeah, get me on meds. I don't want to think about this shit. Like, sure, numb me up. Like, I was like, cool. I don't like. I do need help now that my twin sister thinks that our father was molesting us, and like I do too, but I don't have any memories. Like, I was willing to receive help. Um, so my psychiatrist said that she wanted to just get like generic labs done, like test all these things and see if there was like any hormones that were out of balance or like any she wanted to basically see if we had any health problems that were going on that was actually affecting the mental problems, because she believed that was like why sometimes people have mental health problems. So that's why she had us go see our primary care doctor and have her do like a urine test. And I even remember my mom telling my dad at the dinner table, like the night before we were supposed to have this test done, like, hey, I'm taking the girls to the doctor tomorrow. Like almost as if like telling him like in code, like, hey, don't drug them and molest them tonight. Because the way that she was, let me backtrack. Every time my mom took me to the doctor, my dad would be like, what are you going to tell the doctors? What are you going to tell them? I remember when I was 4 years old, I couldn't breathe. And I think I was actually having a panic attack, but I had terrible asthma growing up. So my mom was like, we need to take her to the hospital. And um, I couldn't walk because my dad had just severely violated me. And so my legs, like, I would stand up and I would just fall back down. Like, my legs were literally useless, shaking so badly that I couldn't even stand properly. And my mom was like, what did you do to her, Brian? What did you do to her, Brian? And he was like, well, we can't take her to the hospital because she's going to tell them, you know. And so they were like interrogating me, like, what are you going to tell the doctors? What are you going to tell the doctors? And I was like, I don't feel good. I mean, and I remember knowing at the time, like, he had done something to me. But when they were interrogating me, saying, like, what are you going to tell the doctors? I just remember being really confused because, like, I couldn't understand why, like, as a kid, I couldn't understand right from wrong. Like, I couldn't understand that what my father had just done was wrong. So I couldn't understand why they were so upset and were like interrogating me. And like I didn't think of my dad as a bad person at that age. So I I just remember being really confused. And then when I got to the doctor, they were like, "Your daughter is fine." And my mom said her skin is blue. But it was because I was just, I remember I was also really afraid and I was holding my breath. And that's why like, my mom thought I was having an asthma attack, but I wasn't. I was just like having a panic attack. Um, so yeah.
Oh my gosh, how horrifying. That is a really sad response to what you were going through, and all that they cared about was what you were going to say to the doctors, not even about you being healthy or like not healthy and getting you help. It's so sad how children have to become parents in these situations and grow up faster than what they need to and deal with things that no child should ever have to deal with, and so obvious like why you would be confused and feel that way. And that is a big thing, when you're violated and abused your whole life ever since you can remember. Those lines are delineated of like where the boundaries start and where they end, where they're crossed, where they're not. So having parents all of a sudden enforce a boundary and be like, okay, what's your boundary with these doctors? It's like, wait a minute, like, what is that? Like, why don't we have them here? Like, why can't that same concern happen when I'm being violated as the concern is for if somebody finds out? It can be very, very confusing in those ways. I find a lot of people attest that, and how that's such a big like mind fuck to have to figure out when you do start remembering and being like, oh my gosh, like I believed that all of that was normal, and like having to come to terms with that. And it's so sad that kids get put in these situations. And your abuse, like it really did start super young. And you're more than welcome to go into as much or little detail as you want. But when do you like remember this abuse starting, and like how did it transpire in your life? Was it mostly your dad who was the perpetrator? Sort of who was involved with it, and like where did it take place, and what did that look like for you, especially because you're also trying to live this normal life of like going to school and actually being a kid, and like on the back end you're going through this like horrific time.
Mhm. Yeah, he would well, it started from the age of 4, and then it he continued to do it until I was 7 years old. And when I was 7, I remember him telling me that I was too ugly and I was too fat for him, and that we couldn't play our games anymore. I mean, he would call them games, and that, I think that was also part of his grooming, so that if I told people what was going on, they wouldn't know what I was talking about. Um, but that's when it stopped, and then it started again when I was 14, because that's when they found GHB in my system. I mean, it might have started sooner than that, but I I don't know if it happened because he would drug me repeatedly, and that was also part of my memory loss too. Was that he was drugging me so much. I didn't learn until I got out of that situation and I like got help and was seeing like, you know, uh, I had a great therapist who like actually specialized in PTSD and like sexual abuse, and she told me that GHB actually causes memory loss. So that was actually really helpful to me because it kind of gave me permission to forgive myself for forgiving, because I mean forgetting, because I was so angry at myself for not remembering, and I would just beat myself up and be like, how could you forget about this? Like, but now I see it was like, not only was my brain protecting itself, but I was under the influence of like God knows what else. I don't know if it was just GHB, who knows what else it was. Um, but when he would assault me, he would, it was like it was like I could see it was like a game to him. Like he was having so much fun, and then afterwards I mean, he would even like force me and my twin sister to touch each other, and would record us, take photos of us. Um, and that was like the bait too for his company, like because he would use photos and videos of us to draw people in, and establish trust with his customers. And he would tell me things afterwards, like I was lucky for what he did to me because he could sell me to people who would actually sacrifice me, people who would cut my vagina and make it look like a witch's nose. He said Hillary Clinton would do that to me. I didn't even know who Hillary was at that age, and I remember thinking, I remember at first I thought it was a joke when he told me that, and I started laughing because like I couldn't even process that at 7 years old, and he said, "No, I'm not kidding. Like she would actually do that to you," and would say things like, "I'll kill your sisters, and then I'll sell you. I'll kill your mom," and he just made a lot of threats so that I was scared to tell anybody what was going on. I remember even my mom, when she was trying to leave him when I was 7, and she was asking me like, "Why are there holes in your underwear?" Because he would poke holes in my underwear and say, "I'm just tickling you," and like if you tell anybody they're tickling that I'm tickling you, they're not going to know what you're talking about. And like, I mean, he was right. Like that's exactly what he was doing, grooming me. And like I didn't know what molesting was. Like I didn't know what that word meant until I was 14 really, and my sister said, "Hey, dad molested us." And I'm like, "What's that?" I had never even been taught what that word was. He never used that in his vocabulary. So and like I didn't learn about it from people my own age or from teachers or books. That's how I learned a lot, was from reading a lot. Always, from the age of 5, I was reading like chapter books. I was always very ahead in school. I was a very gifted kid. I learned my times tables in the first grade, so I was always advanced in math. And my dad would brag about how smart I was to his co-founders, to anybody. Like he was always very proud of how smart I was because that made him look good and like proved how smart he was. Like my achievements were his achievements, and it was never really about loving me. It was always just about like bragging to people about me. And I remember him even bragging. I remember Steve Green, one of the co-founders, came over and I was reading a book, and my dad told me to put my legs up so that he could see like my underwear underneath my skirt, and like telling Steve Green like, "Look at her. I can get her to do anything that I want her to do for me." And Steve Green was actually like just kind of disturbed by my dad. I remember that. Like Steve Green, and I think that's interesting too because of Steve Green's involvement. Um, but I find that interesting because my father was very disturbed by Hillary Clinton. Like my father is afraid of Hillary Clinton, and it's just kind of funny to me that these pedophiles, they kind of all operate at different levels, and like they're they don't all operate at the same level, is what I'm getting at. Like my dad is afraid of um like my dad is into the sexual aspect of it, but for him it wasn't about sacrificing children like for ritualistic purposes, because I know that some Satanists do that for ritualistic purposes. Like he was actually disgusted by that and afraid of that. It's strange to me that they all operate at different levels, but I guess that would make sense considering that there are stages of like even selling your soul, from what I've been told. um like the devil will ask more and more and more of you, and it's interesting to me that some of these people have lines they're not willing to cross, but some of these people are willing to go all the way in.
Yes, and sort of realizing that probably the reason that a lot of them came together wasn't because anything that they have in common except these uh this sort of darkness that they were all proliferating, and that's even scary to think that, how do all these people end up meeting each other who are traffickers and child abusers and, people who would do these horrible things. And now they're all together in business, and pizza of all things. It's really interesting to me every time I hear these stories to understand that deep connection and that so many of these people don't even trust each other. Like some of them don't even like each other. They're sort of bound because of blackmail and pedophilia and their crimes, you know?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I'll have you read some corroboration that we found in this CyberSlice brochure. But one of the things that I wanted to point out for people who are listening, and if you're watching, I have this brochure up, and on the side over here, it shows the management team, and this is like a brochure. It looks like that they may have sent clients, an email list potentially, if things like that were around then that they were using, sort of like a quarterly newsletter. But it does show all the people that Madison was just talking about underneath the management team. It shows sales team names. And then I thought it was interesting. They have an advisory board, and it looks like a lot of these people are from pizza companies. Like you see Domino's Pizza on here, which is probably one that everybody knows. The rest of them look like more maybe small companies or chains that might be in a certain state versus national. I could be wrong. But it's really interesting to see all these different people who were involved with this, and right up to Steve Jobs. But one thing, Madison, I wanted you to share, we found kind of an interesting statement made in here under the benefits of CyberSlice system that seemed to corroborate you saying that you and your sister were used for photos and video to sort of lure people in.
Yeah, what stood out to me was that merchants will be provided with camera-ready art. That just seemed like it was code to me to help them promote and advertise their own web page address. I mean, that was just weird. Like, why do merchants need that service?
Yes, and I'll actually pin this brochure in the show notes for people because I think potentially a lot of this could be code.
Mhm.
And but from the outside, if you just were to stumble upon it like how we did online, and you didn't know this backstory that Madison's telling us, it could just read very normally. But knowing what we know with code words and understanding that this was a trafficking network and that they are sending this brochure to potential or maybe current clients, I think it does have potentially an undertone with a subliminal message written between the lines that you can see very clearly if you are reading between the lines.
Yes, and you pointed out too, merchants will be able to receive orders in advance for big takeout order and delivery days like the Super Bowl.
Yes, and how takeout order is in quotes, and then we know that the Super Bowl is, from what I understand, the biggest human trafficking event of the whole year. And so the fact that they use that as an example versus anything, 4th of July or any type of, holiday or big day that may deliver a lot of pizza or that this service might be in demand, I think it's very interesting that they picked the Super Bowl out of everything.
And I didn't even know the Super Bowl was a big trafficking day. So that just shows how much how much I know. But yeah, I feel like I learn more and more about this stuff. It's sickening. It's yeah, yeah.
And so, what do you remember about CyberSlice? Because it seems like you were involved around a lot of the people that your father was, and you got to meet a lot of these people.
Mhm.
What do you remember about the way that they would interact or wait or things that they were potentially doing? Did you go with your dad at all to different meetings? What do you look back on and you're like, holy crap, I can't believe that I was around this, or I can't believe that this happened?
I do remember him taking me to meetings, and I remember feeling afraid of the people that I was around, and even my mom kind of giving me like a pep talk. I wouldn't even like a pep talk, I guess is how I describe it. Like before we got there, like telling me like, "Hey, I'm going to be in the room with you. It's okay. I know we're going to be around these like people, but like we're going to be okay." Um and like that alone tells me that she knew about their character. I mean, according to her, she says she didn't know that he was involved in all of this until I was 7, but I think she knew about it way before then. Um, I remember we were eating like sandwiches, and I remember I couldn't even eat the sandwiches because I was so anxious to be in the room with all these guys, and like that's probably also from my own abuse that I had with them, and I didn't even connect them at the time. I just remember thinking it was because I didn't like them as people. Like they would ask me about like, "Hey, how's school?" But then they would laugh at me when I would answer them. Like they thought, and it wasn't like, "Madison, you're funny," because kids are funny, kids are cute. It wasn't that, it was like they were mocking me. It was just an uncomfortable situation to be around them and to go to his work. I didn't like going to his work. And I remember another time too, he said it was his work, and it was like this like middle of nowhere facility. Like, and this is also why I believe that he is involved in the CIA, because I remember we got there and they weighed me and they took my height. And I remember thinking, what does this have to do with any, like, what does this have to do with his business? I was only like, I wasn't even in school yet. I was like 4. Um, and keep in mind too, he was always into these like big tech, like he's a tech guy. He's always into these like tech things. And I remember we went into this room and it was completely white. And like I couldn't even tell where the wall and the floor stopped because it was so white in there. It was almost like a lab. And I said, like, what are we doing in here? And he said, tell me what you see in that corner over there, and like pointed to the corner. And looked at it and I started screaming because I saw this black, huge spider like crawling around everywhere. And he said, "What do you see? What do you see?" And I said, "It's a spider. Can't you see it?" And he said, "No, I can't see what you're seeing." It was like, to this day, it still gives me the creeps because I don't know what they were experimenting with, what they were doing. Um, and the fact that it was like off site too, um, like to this day, I still haven't been able to connect what that was, or where we even were, because it took us hours to even get there. And um, he was so proud of it too. And like he told me it was technology that would project your worst fear. And he would also tell me that like this is just a simulation and that this is just a test and that none of this is real. Like he would tell me things like that even at a young age. And so I that's why I really do think he was involved in the CIA. I mean, there are things that I can't even explain that he would tell me or show me, and I would be it would just blow my mind. And so like I can see why doctors would say that I have schizophrenia or that I'm psychotic, but just knowing my dad's background and his connections to Steve Jobs and all this, like I think there's something bigger than any of us can even understand. And I think Satanism really ties into all of this. They worship the devil, and my father would even call himself a good witch, is how he introduced himself to my mom because she was Christian. And when I was 7, this is when he stopped molesting me for a short period of time. My mom actually threw away every single movie that had a witch in it, every single book. Like she like told my dad, if you don't stop drinking and if you don't find Christ, I'm leaving you, and then basically forced him to find Christ. So he didn't actually find Christ. Um, and like my dad claimed he had special powers, and like Bibles would fly off of the shelf. Like the stuff that you see in The Exorcism is like how I grew up. Like my whole family would hear children running up and down the stairs, but there were no children running up and down the stairs. We would hear kids screaming, help me" in the garage, and I was always too afraid to go into the garage. But now I don't know if he actually was, I mean, I don't know if he was actually killing kids in the garage. Um, like I remember I would literally feel like trapped in my bed because I was so scared. Like I was like, I can't go into the garage, but I would hear it. Everybody heard it. Um, I remember my mom was even just walking in the kitchen once, and a knife got thrown at her in midair and almost stabbed her. Like there were just signs all around that there was this demonic presence in our home, and I don't know what that was. If that was demons attached to him that were causing those kinds of things. Um, I I truly will never know. It's like supernatural. You can't explain it. Um, and I think that's why I find so much solace in Christianity too, is because it like talks about these things, like, and validates these things and tells us there's nothing new under the sun. This has been a spiritual battle that we've been fighting since, I mean, the story of Moses. Like they were the Pharaoh was saying to kill every Hebrew son. Um, so, and like Moses was, I mean, I'm telling the story. I know you probably know the story. I'm telling the story for people who don't, but Moses was a Hebrew and he should have been killed, but his mom um, knew that Pharaoh was going to kill him, so she put him in a basket on the river. And so when Pharaoh found him, he thought that it was like a gift from the gods and raised Moses as his own son. I mean, this story has like comforted me in my worst times because it I feel like I can relate to it so much because I feel like it kind of tells the story of my own childhood. Like I grew up like Moses with somebody like Pharaoh who was sacrificing all these kids, thinking this is my father, this is the man that I love, and like Moses has his own comes to his own terms where he realizes that slavery is wrong and that the way that Pharaoh treats his slaves is wrong, and like runs away and leaves, and then decides to come back to free all of the Hebrews. I just relate to that so much.
It's really beautiful. And it's so awesome that you've been able to have faith and connect with that despite what you went through. Because I think sometimes this extreme trauma can really push people away from that, and ask and all these questions go through your head, of why why the things that you have faith in didn't come help you, and I think it's really important that we do reflect on that and, realize what free will is and, unconditional love and, to find those glimpses of things that we can relate to and to realize that, you know, the story that was our past doesn't mean that that has to be who we are in the future, that it'll always be a part of us, but that there can be moments of inspiration, there can be happiness, there can be healing, there can be a semblance of a normal life on the other side of that, and I think the Bible has some really beautiful examples of that, and just the different uh the stories in it are very telling and inspirational. And I love that you've been able to grasp onto that, because those moments can be really helpful when things feel very, very heavy and dark.
I remember even when I was 5, and thank you for saying that. I just thought of something and I didn't want to get off track. I was 5 and I started going through all of my dad's business cards, and they were actually projects. And I remember thinking I need to find the right one. And I was 5 years old, and I could read well at that age, but I could not have read the word chameleon, and I think that was God and or my angels guiding me, because I was going through all these business cards trying to find the right one and not even sure which one was the right one. But I remember being told that I would know it was the right one when I found it. And it said the Chameleon Project. And I think that that is a project that the CIA does on kids. Like, they have people who are in the CIA do this project on their own kids and abuse their own kids. And like, chameleon is a like something that a lot of survivors become. They'll just blend into whatever environment they're in. And I remember like resonating with it when I read it, and not even knowing why. Like, I didn't know what a chameleon was when I was 5. I didn't even know, like, and the fact that I always remembered that, but I couldn't connect all these other things. I feel like that was God's like hand guiding me truly. I remember even my mom was like freaking out, like, he's gonna know that they're out of order, like, crying, like telling me, stop, don't go through them. Um, like, because she wasn't even supposed to go through them. Like, that's how classified they were. And she even told me once that she had gone onto his computer. This is when she found child pornography on his computer when I was 7. And she had discovered what his name was, like his screen name that he was using, and called him by this name, and he freaked out and was like, if anybody ever finds out that what that name is, they'll kill me. So I don't know if that was like his secret name that he used for the CIA, like if he went by a different name when he worked for the CIA. I kind of think that's what it was. But like, how dumb is that? You're using that same name to view child pornography. And I mean, and that was his defense too. He said, I worked for the CIA, and that's why there was child pornography and on my computer. Like, that's what he told my mom. My mom truly believes now that he was working for the CIA and helping to bust other pedophiles, and that that's why there was pornography on his computer. She truly believes now that he is working for this, or worked for the CIA, and that's why there was pornography on his computer. At least that's what she stands by. I did Maybe she doesn't actually believe that. Maybe she's trapped in so much fear that that's why she hasn't left yet. I have even like emailed her and asked her these things, and she tells me um that she's still with him because I'm crazy and I'm psychotic and I need to be on meds. But I mean, the fact that she found child pornography on his computer, and he says it's because he's CIA, like, that just validates everything to me. And sometimes I even wonder too if CyberSlice was created by the CIA, and that's why nothing has been done. And like, we know how involved the government is in all of this. I mean, that is my big question: is did the CIA really create this, and that's why nothing has been done?
Totally. And I was going to ask you about sort of this other side of the business. So we know who was involved. We know what the outer shell was of what they told people this was and what people could do in society to support it, which was go online and put in orders for pizza. Um, can you go into sort of the background? So, what did the trafficking situation look like behind the scenes? Where were they curating people from? What do you know and remember about that side of it?
He would give me magazines and say, "Hey, cut out the kids that you wanna save and cut out the kids that you wanna kill, because that's how much power I have," and he would, like, use that as means to threaten me, like, after he had assaulted me, so and he would even just hand me, like, a magazine, like, for, like sometimes they weren't even naked kids. Sometimes they were like, because he would have a catalog of kids, um, and sometimes he would even just hand me, like, catalogs that you get in the mail, like, from, what was the name of that one shop? Uh Limited 2 is the name that it used to be, and then it became Justice, and then whatever else it became. I remember he handed me a magazine, and I said, "Here, cut out the kids in this magazine. Tell me which ones you wanna buy." Um, so I feel like because he handed me that magazine and that was just a catalog for clothes, I feel like they were getting these kids from, like, child stars, models, like, eh, from anywhere. Like, I believe that a lot of times what happens is these kids, they get sold by their parents because their parents want wealth, fame, whatever it is. Um, I think that's one avenue. I think there are a lot of other avenues too. Kidnapping. Um, my dad was always very afraid I was going to be kidnapped. He did not like me playing outside, even in my own backyard. He would tell my mom, "Don't let the girls play in the backyard unless you're watching them." Like, he was always very afraid of us being kidnapped. Um, so I know that I remember that was one of his biggest fears, and he would say too because of the work that he did, it was dangerous for me to be outside, and like, why would you say that? Like, because of the work that I do? Like, what does that really mean? And all these things that I never thought of and questioned, I would just go, "Oh, yeah, like, sure." Though really, the only thing I knew about my dad as a kid, like, the only thing of course, I knew all these other things and I wasn't connecting them. I would just tell myself, "Oh, yeah, my dad's wealthy, my dad's smart." Like, and that was and all this other stuff was, like, background noise that I picked up on, and that I don't think they realized that I was actually listening when they were talking about all these things, and that it wasn't just a 4-year-old, 5-year-old being a kid. Like, I was actually always very fascinated by the adult world. I always wanted to learn as much as possible. So when they were talking, I was always picking up on these things, even subconsciously, even if it wasn't like a conscious thing. Um, and so when I finally left his house when I was 21 years old, I started putting all these little pieces together, and it was like very frustrating because I knew it was a big puzzle piece and I only had these small little pieces, but I just remembered more and more and more and put it together. Um, I wish I could tell you more. I don't know where they I don't know if there's like a soul. Actually, I can tell you this. When my mom was trying to leave when we were 7 years old, she had picked me and my twin sister up and had taken us to like a foster home and was going to just drop us off there for the night because she said it was for the night. I think she thought he was gonna kill her and or kill us, and she was scared, and she was going to drop us off, and she got to this gate, and she recognized somebody from the foster home and then, like, took off. Like, we were still in the car, and they were opening up this gate. Um, So that is one way that they get kids too, is through the foster care system and through um, just luring kids in. I think too. Like I think they look for kids who come from bad homes and who want to escape their parents.
Yes, 100%. And I appreciate you sharing all of that. I know that this stuff can be really hard to talk about, especially because it is your family, and I feel like there's such a deep conflict with this because when we share these stories, we're villainizing these people, because they have done bad things. And so they should be, like we do need to expose the bad that people do and, share about it. But at the same time, when you get down to it from a human level, a lot of the people that are being exposed are family members, and it can be deeply conflicting because these are people that you want to love and that should have been there for you to love you and protect you, and people that many times the survivor or the victim devotes many years to like trying to please this person, even though they might be a psychopath, and like there's never going to be compassion and empathy and in a level playing field with this. It's always going to be an abusive situation, and I don't say this to discredit or minimize the abuse. I say it because it's so terribly difficult and just traumatic and sad that these people that should be the most loving people setting a positive example and protecting children, having to expose those people as being abusive can be just as traumatizing, and you're really brave for coming up here and doing that, Madison, because this is a really important story. And I was telling you before when we were talking off the podcast, I feel like a situation like this helps paint the narrative for all the abuse that we hear is happening on the dark web and that has proliferated online, and even right down to you see OnlyFans and girls that are basically just pimping themselves out for the highest bidder online, and it's being encouraged like it's legal to do that, and I feel like instances like this where a loophole was used to bring code words and predators together through the pizza industry and a platform called CyberSlice, you know, could have helped revolutionize where we are today, and help set a frame for how online predatory work can easily happen and deceive people, and how you can even get people to embrace it and accept it if you slap the right code words on, on the back end and get the type of clientele that you're looking for while also really deceiving the public into agreeing that all of this is okay, and I think it's just so sad that something like this affected you and your siblings so much, and that there were these different people that were brought in to your abuse because of this. And like I said, it's family members that are proliferating that, and it's a really difficult situation, and like I said, you're so brave for coming up here and sharing. Um, Now, so your dad has this online pizza platform where you can order it. I know that it wasn't something that continued on for a significant amount of time. What was kind of do you remember what the response was? Like, did it have a moment where like it really blew up and it was going crazy? And then how did that sort of
It did in the
demise?
90s. I know that because my dad didn't marry my mom until 1998, I think, was when they got married. Because their anniversary falls pretty close to when my mom got pregnant with me and my twin sister. So I knew it blew up in the 90s, and my mom told me, would say things like, "Oh, your dad is a millionaire on paper." Um, always saying your dad is a millionaire and stuff like that. Um, but he lost a lot when it went out of business, like a lot. He had Jaguars that he lost, um, like two or three Jaguars he lost. Um, I think it lost its popularity when the dark web was created because that's what put him out of business. Um, and that's when they were forced to sell to food.com. And I remember my dad told my mom, who then told me that they weren't going to get as much money as they originally thought they were going to get for it. And they had like he had stock in the company that he thought he was going to get more of and he didn't, and he had like life insurance policies he thought he was going to get and he didn't. So um uh I should say more out of that he thought he was going to get, and he didn't really get much according to him. I don't know, it's difficult. I don't know if these things are actually true because like he has drug addictions, porn addictions. Um, who knows? Maybe he actually got more out of that and he gambled it or lost it. Growing up, I remember even thinking too, how does my dad make so much money and yet like there's no food in our fridge? My clothes have holes in them. Like I didn't have health insurance. Every time was sick or had a health problem, they were more concerned about the costs associated with it than they were concerned about my own health. So, like, he was never financially smart with his own family and cared more about his own addictions. So, it's hard to comment, at least on the wealth side of things for my dad. I don't know what that truly looked like. He claims that he's always made like $300,000, $200,000 a year. Who knows if that's even true? Maybe he made more than that. I don't know. Um, I know when it was collapsing, it was during the recession, which I also find pretty interesting. That I kind of am curious if there's a connect between the fall of CyberSlice and the recession. Um, because, and I only say that because um, he couldn't find work after the recession. And I find that odd with somebody in his position and his background. Why are you struggling to find work for the next 4 years, is what it was? I don't know if that was during a height of a time that maybe the FBI was really cracking down on all of this. It's kind of hard to say.
Yes,
And I
absolutely.
remember him even telling me during the recession that that companies weren't going to need people like him working at their business. And so much of this, the way that he would talk to me was like kind of code, kind of telling me what was going on, but kind of not really, if that makes sense. Like he always spoke to me very, I don't know if indirectly is the right word. I feel like he was always giving me like little codes. Like, I guess that's also why I believe that he was CIA, is because he could never tell me the truth. He always had to find a way to tell me what was going on, like in a very vague way, if that makes sense. Like when the recession hit, we lost our like big fancy house near the beach and we had to move into this little condo. And um like sometimes I didn't even have breakfast and lunch, and all I had for the day was like a hot dog or like ramen noodles. Like we were really struggling financially. And for him to phrase it like that, like people aren't going to need people like me to companies aren't going to need people like me to work for them. it was just it's just an odd way to say it. Like if I lost my job, that's not the way I would say that to my child. I would say, you know, hey, hard times right now, like I'm working on looking for work, like um you know, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Let's pray about it. Like I just wouldn't speak to them. I wouldn't say a phrase like that. Do you think his phrase was like odd?
I do, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, maybe as a kid it would go over your head, but looking back, I'm sure that that was a huge sign, just sort of seeing the disconnect there.
And just the fact too that that when he did find work again, he was working for McGraw-Hill. Every single job, if you just look at his background and look at all of like the stuff that he's done, he could have. It's kind of weird that I didn't. How do I say this? I mean, like it couldn't be more obvious. Like, okay, so now you're basically designing the material to brainwash kids because that's what's going on now. They're brainwashing our kids in school. And my dad is conservative, and that's what I want to touch on too. Is like it's not just the Hillary Clintons and the Bill Gates; it's the conservatives. And the best thing they could have you believe is the conservatives are the good guys, and like you know they make um like I've seen like they how people will tie in the red party as like the red pill in the matrix, and I'm like just stop please, because it's not it's both sides and they want us to fight with each other. They would love for us to like be divided, because divided we fall, united we stand. Like when did we forget that?
Amen, sister. You're so right about that. And it's really easy to forget that. And I'm glad that you brought that up, especially because this is an election year and, we do see that division really proliferated during these times in history when we have to go vote for, I always say, like putting the next pedophile in office. It's really
Yeah.
sick. It's sick, like the way that, we treat each other over having a belief system that's different and accusing one side as if the other side isn't involved. And you're absolutely right. It is both sides. And that's the pill that's hard to swallow for people because they don't escape that sort of two-party system mentality and have kind of an overview of like, wait a minute, are both teams working with the same coach? Like are they both playing for the same team actually and just wearing different uniforms? It is proliferated on both sides. And if people were to look harder, they would see that, and I think people purposely put blinders on because it threatens their belief system and their identity in a sense, when they look past what they've taken in as a belief to possibly open up their mind to accepting a different reality. And I think part of your story too that exemplifies that are these sort of big names that are working with your father. Do you remember meeting Steve Jobs? And if so, what was that experience like? What was he like? How did he treat you? And then same thing with Bill Gates. Whether or not you met him, what do you remember maybe about your dad talking about them? Or what was kind of like your impression of these people growing up around these different families and influential people in society?
I remember them talking about Steve Jobs. I remember being at their headquarters and them saying, Steve is going to be here next week. Madison, you can meet Steve. And I know they wanted me to meet him, but I don't remember meeting him. And I know they talked about it. Um, and I mean, my dad would threaten to sell me to people all the time. I don't know if that actually, um, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen because I'm still uncovering so many memories. Um, Like I will still remember things that I forgot about. I mean, even as I talk, I try to keep it in chronological order, but there's like so much that easy to get lost, and it's easy to like get fixated on something and then forget about what I was just saying. Um, I remember Bill Gates, he was afraid of, he was afraid of Bill Gates. And I think that's interesting too, because he was his biggest client. Um, and I remember him telling my mom, when the dark web was created, I remember him telling her, like, we lost Bill, like, he's no longer supporting us. Um, and also because Hillary Clinton was involved, um, that could have been Bill Clinton too. So that could have been Bill Gates. That could have been Bill Clinton. I I think it's Bill Gates just because of the other stuff he's told me too. He brought up Bill Gates' name a lot. Like just weird, really weird stuff. But Bill Gates is a weird guy. Like, sorry, no offense, but the stuff that he does and he says, I'm just like, oh God, like what now? Like why are we genetically modifying watermelons? Freaking leave them alone. Like, why are you constantly trying to alter our DNA and to alter like food? Like, you're fucking with us.
Exactly. You're so right.
Um, I know that Bill Gates was his biggest client, but I mean, I know Hillary Clinton was also one of his biggest clients. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Can you talk about her a little bit? And do you have any idea? I know with Steve Jobs, you're not quite clear how that connection happened. Do you by chance or were you able to find any connections between your dad and Bill Gates and or Hillary Clinton?
They were just names that he brought up when he lost CyberSlice, um, and they had to sell to food.com. Uh, I remember my mom asking him, "Well, like, how does that happen? Like, how do we just lose a relationship with him?" And um, like, my dad said there was nothing he could do because the dark web was created and it was more secure than CyberSlice was. As far as Hillary Clinton goes, he just used her name when he was threatening me and would tell me about the things that she would do to children, like um, cause them harm, like bodily harm, and kill them, sacrifice them for ritualistic purposes, sexually assault them. So that's to the extent that I know about Hillary Clinton. Like, he would say, like, I was so lucky and that Hillary Clinton was the devil. He would say that a lot to me. Um, and during actually, this is kind of interesting. During the election between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, I was just coming forward about my father um, sexually assaulting me. I was 17 years old, and he threw me in a psychiatric facility for 6 weeks against my own will. And um, when I was coming forward about all this stuff, I wasn't talking about him child trafficking. Um, well, I was actually sorry. I was telling people that my father was like, I said he was sacrificing babies, and I was um, saying that he had molested me, and like I meant like because he was trafficking children, but he said that I was using drugs and that I had done like I had had a psychotic break from LSD and that this is what was causing all of this. But I find it interesting that that was during the time frame that all that stuff about Hillary Clinton came to the public eye. I think there's a connection there.
Yes, and for people who have watched this podcast, Hillary Clinton's name has come up at least twice that I can think of off the top of my head of survivors that have listed her as an abuser, and it might be more than that, but her name does come up. And you're right, like that was really a big exposure point at that period in time for her, where people started questioning things. There were cases online. We got to see Bill Clinton connected to Epstein and riding the Lolita Express. There was a lot coming out about that family, and the things that they were doing behind the scenes that until then were like really shielded from the public, and I think that is really telling that of, all the people, and we know, all of these people are connected too. So, Bill Gates, Hillary Clinton, like there's connections that people have made too between all of them. And then to see them rallying together around this like random pizza ordering company, it's like what brought all these people together? Is it just they're all good business people and they're all friends? Or do they have this dark agenda in common that they could all work together for, you know?
And I was like, I don't know how I can explain this. And I couldn't explain it at the time. So I thought I must be crazy. Like when he was telling me I was crazy, I was like, yeah, I must be crazy because I didn't remember him actually. At that point, I didn't remember him threatening to sell me to Hillary Clinton. So he was saying, like, how do you know that? How do you know that? And I said, I don't know. I just know. And so immediately after that, he went straight to my mom and was yelling at her, did you tell her? Did you tell her? Why would you tell her that? Screaming, like, do you know what this does to me? Do you know what this does to us? Um, and so I remember just thinking, just shutting my door, locking the door, and telling myself, I'm crazy, I'm crazy, I'm schizophrenic, I'm imagining this. Like, I didn't want that to be my reality. And so I willingly took these antipsychotics that um that these doctors had prescribed to me when I was in this psychiatric hospital. Um and they were even like at one point I had this doctor and I actually requested a different doctor, and I thank God that they listened to me and gave me a different doctor because he was injecting me with Clonopin every 8 hours. And I was like, it would knock me out for days. I would wake up and it would like, I would go to sleep. It would be Tuesday. I would wake up, it would be like Wednesday or Thursday. And I'm like, how did this happen? How did I sleep for like they were giving me way more than I should have been given. And even my nurse was uh complaining about it. And actually, she was the one who told me to request a different doctor because she said the amount of medication that they're giving you is too much for somebody your age and your weight. And it was like abuse in the hospital. And the doctor was even communicating with my dad, talking to him and threatening me and saying, hey, I talked to your dad today. And I had told my doctor, because they actually asked me, can we talk to your parents? And I said, no, I don't want you talking to my parents because I shouldn't be here. I was like really mad. And yeah, he was talking to my dad anyways. He was taking my dad's phone calls and he wanted me to know that. So I was like, okay, I don't want you as a doctor anymore then. Um, and yeah, when I stopped seeing that doctor, I actually improved because they sent me home too, and I was like going through withdrawals from Clonopin because Clonopin is like a heavy duty anxiety drug. It's like Xanax. It has the same classification as Xanax. And so I was even telling them, I don't want this. Like I don't want this. It's making me feel weird. Like it would even put me in this state where like my everybody else was moving so quickly, but I was moving so slow. And I would have like drool literally coming out of my mouth, like hanging down all the way from like here. And like they would give me documents and be like, here, sign this, sign this. Like there's always so much documents they want you to sign when you're in these hospitals. Like you have to like basically waive the rights to own a gun for like 5 years afterwards. And so I would like hold the pen, it would just drop out of my hand. Like it would like affect my muscles. It's a muscle relaxant too. So yeah, here they are pumping me full of these drugs because I'm crazy. Um and then finally I just said, yeah, you're right, I'm crazy, just so they would let me out of the hospital, because they weren't going to send me home unless my dad wasn't going to let me come home unless I admitted I was crazy. And I wanted to come home because my brother is 12 years younger than me. He's like, I see him as like a son. I pretty much raised him like because my mom was not there for him emotionally, physically. Like she'll just scroll through her phone, ignore him, you know, doesn't feed him like she should, like just like me growing up. So, um, yeah, I knew that intuitively. I knew that my father had done all these things and that I wasn't crazy, but um, I couldn't stand the thought of being apart from my brother and having him grow up without me. And I was afraid for him too, because I wasn't sure if my dad was going to exploit him and traffic him and do these things like he had done to me, and I wanted to be there and make sure that it didn't happen. So I was able to kind of, in my mind, I was able to kind of take this approach like, okay, it's funny too because like during all this time I was piecing together all that my dad had been affiliated with CIA. And it wasn't hard to figure out. Like he told on himself, like he used it as a threat, like you can't, nobody can come after me because I'm CIA. Like um I can get away with it because I'm CIA. Like that was always his thing. um so to go back to my parents' house after they released me from the hospital and be like, okay, this is just an undercover mission, like that way. I was afraid to forget all of these memories. I was afraid that I would be like my twin sister who basically just succumbed to his will and like doesn't stand up to him and is like just not even mentally there. Like I would, from the person that I knew when she was 14 years old when she first came forward about her statement, to the person that she is now, she's just not the same. It's like when you look at her, it's like she's not all the way there. And I do feel like she is in a way kind of a vegetable, like kind of in a vegetable state. Um, and it's really sad. Um, and I that's kind of what I did when I went back. I was like, if I fully accept that I'm crazy, then I'm going to be just like her. And I don't want to be like her, because I do trust myself, but I can't trust myself in this home. So I have to pretend like I can't trust myself. I remember I even told my teacher uh, who was working with me at that time. She was like a special, I don't know what to call her. She's technically was like a special education teacher, but they assigned her to work with me because I was missing so much school and was having like mental health problems that they wanted her to to help me to like make up all my assignments and just be there for like mental health support. Um, and I remember, and I don't think you're crazy. Um, And I remember telling her, I'm going to have to act and I said, yeah, I don't think I'm crazy either, but I'm going to have to act real crazy in order for my dad to think I'm crazy. Like, so even at the age of 17, I was started to rebel against him and started to, even though I hadn't left yet, I was still like going through the process of like, okay, how do I overcome this? How do I overcome him? How do I get justice? Um, and at the same time, also kind of gaslighting myself because I would wake up with my underwear on inside out and he would say, oh, it was aliens. And I would go, okay, yeah, it was aliens. And I would just have to tell myself it was aliens because that was easier to accept than to accept that my dad was doing those things. So, and same thing with my sister. And she would just say, yeah, it was aliens. But I remember one time she did come into my room and she said, did you wake up with your underwear on inside out last night? And I said, no. And like, this was before it had actually started happening to me. So I do feel bad because I started laughing at her. I was like, that's crazy. Like you probably just put your underwear on inside out and you forgot about it. And she was like, um, and then when it actually started happening to me, that's when I was like, oh, like this is what's going on because she has also come to me and said it's happening to her. One time I even woke up and I was 21 years old and I had actually I was sleeping on the couch with my brother who's 12 years younger than me because he was afraid to go to sleep and actually got me out of my bed and said, "I can't fall asleep. Will you go to sleep with me? Because I'm scared." And I was like, "Yeah, of course I will," because I always was afraid to fall asleep at night as a kid too, and I knew what that fear felt like. I didn't want him to be alone. Afraid, sorry you've been up all night, like get over it. And so I was like, yeah, of course. Like I love my brother unconditionally. I would do anything for him. Like even coming forward, I was like, I'm coming forward for him because he deserves to grow up in a house, not me. Um, and so I slept on taking antipsychotics, still telling myself I'm crazy and like for all the people out there who say like, "Oh, you're crazy" and stuff. I'm like, you know what? You are so lucky that you think I'm crazy. You are so lucky that you trust the government. Like you are so lucky that you haven't been let down by FBI, by law enforcement, by like all these agencies who are supposed to protect us, who are supposed to put these bad guys away and they are the bad guys. Like it's like our government is like the mafia. Like but that's how I see it. But they're like this occult, this like secret society that we don't know about. And even my dad has said like that they don't give us any technology without them knowing about it first. So that memory I have back of when I was like 4 years old and whatever they were experimenting with, um, like there's a reason that that hasn't been brought to the public eye yet. And normally it's because they're using it against their own people.
Yes, you're absolutely right about that. And that goes over people's head too, because the technology that we are presented with seems so advanced. And it is if you compare it to every other thing that we've been exposed to. But to consider that there's so much that isn't shown to us and that is only known to certain people behind the scenes, I feel like society would be just completely like their brain would just melt into sludge,
It would,
if they were
and my
to
dad said the same thing to me. He said if we really knew what was going on, most of us wouldn't be able to handle it. And I believe that because I couldn't even handle it. Like I had many like moments where like I mean, it kind of was a psychotic break because my mind was breaking with reality. I like breaking with the reality that he had trained me to believe in. Like and in that sense, that's why I do call it a psychotic break when people ask me about it because it was I guess a psychotic break isn't the right word for it. Like that's what my doctors called it when they forced me to go into that facility. But I think what it really should be called is like an awakening. Um and yeah, I mean I mean, for those aren't normal things that a dad says to their daughter, like, oh, the public would freak out if they knew what was actually going on. Like, and I remember even my teacher telling me, she said, you know, Madison, I have never questioned whether my dad laid his hands on me, because I told her when I was 16 years old, I said, hey, my twin sister said my dad molested us, and I believe her, but I don't have any memories of it. And she said, that's because your brain was protecting itself, and you'll remember when it's time, and like, and it's okay. And she said, I've never doubted that, like, I've never had to, like, I've always trusted that my dad was a good person and didn't do those things. Those aren't things that people question. And I just thought, oh, like, I thought it was.
I love that you had somebody that could empathize with you on that level. Oh, hold on. My dog's gonna bark.
It's okay. It's good timing because I started to cry and
You're
I
being
didn't
so
want to
brave.
cry.
You're being so brave, and it's okay to cry. People, that's the reality of this. It's sad and it's heartbreaking, and I think like, for you to have to contend with that with your family, and to be isolated in a sense because you were the only one that really came through with wanting to do the right thing and to have these hard conversations and your family sort of gaslit you, and didn't go on this journey with you to heal and to admit what was wrong and to try to do right by it, which led you to where you are today, which is whistleblowing, and talking about this and having a passion and a mission and a purpose now because of your story. But I really love that you had help that understood you at a time that you were in need. I hear so many times on this podcast that that's like one of the faults of the therapeutic community is not many of them understand extreme trauma and abuse on the level that was perpetuated on you. And so you go to these people for help and you're treated just like your family treats you, where it's like gaslighting and discrediting you and
Yes.
you
And I
with
have had that. I've had a lot of people, I've had that as well. Like, I've had people who really helped me and people who just didn't help me at all. And I'm grateful that I've had enough people who that their impact was strong enough that it didn't matter what those other people did.
and what a blessing, whenever
Yes.
you're feeling that isolated to have that and somebody to just validate the things that are making you feel so crazy.
Yes. And my older sisters too, they um they ran away. Well, one of them ran away when I was 9. She was 19. And then my other sister, my dad kicked her out when she was only 18, and like called her a bad kid and said that she was a bad kid, but um she wasn't. And like the way that he treated my other sisters too, it was just very cruel. And even my 19-year-old sister, I mean, my sister, she told me, sorry, the one who left when she was 19, she told me when we reunited, which wasn't until I was like 19, which is funny because she left at 19. Um, but she told me that um, she tried to come back and my dad wouldn't let her. Um, and basically, he was the one who cut her off. And he always told it like she cut him off. And it was interesting to find out like that wasn't the case. And that also helped me because I realized my dad is a liar and he doesn't tell the truth. And that means he hasn't been telling the truth. What else has he lied about? Like, it opened up all these questions for me. And um it just got to the point where it was like enough is enough. Like, I was 21 years old when I left. I had $1,000 to my name, was making $14 an hour, used $1,000, which was my paycheck from the last 2 weeks, to finance a car. My first car, never had a car before, didn't even know how to buy a car, like what that entailed. But I said, you know what, God, help me to get a car so that I can drive to my job. Like, and I'll leave him, and I won't come back this time because I had tried to get out a few times and always ended up coming back. And God truly showed up for me in that situation. I got my car, like everything worked out. I thought I was going to be homeless and have to live in my car. I ended up finding a room to rent. Like everything just worked out so beautifully for me. I didn't even have money to rent that room. And that person said to me, "It's okay. I trust you." And someone else that has already called me and told me to rent this room to you. And um like because of the person that you are in your community, because I was working at this psychiatric hospital which also specialized in substance abuse. Like I was like I'm always about helping people and about like giving back. And so like this woman had already called this man and said, "Hey, rent a room to her, help her out." And like everything, like, because in that moment you don't think it's all going to work out. You don't know how it's all going to work out. Like sometimes I wish I could just go back and say, "Hey, it's all going to work out. Just chill."
That's
um
the process.
because I was literally like, "Oh, like how is it all gonna work out?" Like I know I tell this story and it seems like it was just like that, but it was like days of me like, "Okay, okay, I'm gonna leave today. No, I'm not. I'm gonna leave today. No, I'm not. I'm gonna pack a suitcase today. No, I'm not." Like it wasn't just like, "Oh, I made a decision and I left." It was like 3 months I sat on that and thought, "Today's the day I'm gonna leave him. Today's the day I'm gonna leave him. Today's the day I'm gonna leave him," and was like saying it like a mantra in my head, and I could not. And um, finally, he was trying to get his business invested. Cup Spear Root was trying to get this business started up during the pandemic, and said he was gonna give me a trust fund and do all these things for me. And like I was giving him all my money. I had given him all my savings, and it wasn't much too. It was like $5,000 and $1,000 every 2 weeks. Like for somebody who's making $200,000 a year, that's not that much money. But he was like taking it because he was gonna get back into the pizza industry. And finally, I was like, I would rather be homeless than be assaulted and wake up and like told that it's aliens that are doing it. Like I didn't believe him anymore, and was finally willing to believe myself and trust myself. And I had a lot of people in my life too who's still in my life who said, "Madison, that's not aliens. That's your dad. You need to get out of there." Um, and kind of even helped me build like take little steps at a time. So it wasn't like this, like I was doing it all at once. Like, okay, you're gonna save a little bit of money each month and not tell your dad about it, so that I was able to save $1,000 without him knowing about it, and then finally leave, get a car, and then never look back. Well, I look back, but there's so many other things too, and I'm not going to be able to get to all of it. But thanks for having me on your show, and thanks for believing me, and thanks for empowering me and empowering others. I really appreciate what you do. There is so much that needs to be done, and truly not enough is being done, but it's a start, and it's because of people like you. And like Emma, you are one of my heroes, and you are like one of my people that to stand by. um like we we literally just met, and like I just love you and I adore you, and I like feel like I've known you forever. So like for people who are watching this, like I don't even care. Sometimes when you know.
No, I felt the same way about you. We are like instant friends, and I'm equally as inspired by you. I think it's just it takes so much courage to get up here and talk about this stuff publicly. It's not the typical thing that somebody gets up and is invited on a podcast for, or who voluntarily, it's not information that's usually voluntarily shared by somebody. I feel like a lot of times, the majority of the times when somebody's speaking in public, it's about the best things that happened to them and the successes that they had. And man, what greater success than surviving that was meant to, destroy you basically. And I think you and others who are speaking out are helping to redefine that and to show us that we need to be proud of the moments that we keep going when we feel like we can't, and to be proud of the things that we survive and that we overcome and that we can now use for good. So many times it's like if you have money, you're successful, or if you have a thriving business, and it's like, well, what about the person that was supposed to die and they lived? Like what more of a miracle is there than that? Like what greater success is there than like overcoming those things, and I get so much courage from talking to people like you and so much inspiration. And, it makes me realize just how important this work is and these disclosures are, that we present this information so people can learn from it. Cause man, it's common. I hated to learn that about this. I was hoping when I did this podcast that it would be really difficult to meet people who went through something this hard. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very disheartening, all the emails that I get, but at the same time, it gives me courage that, okay, well, if there are this many people that have gone through this, how freaking cool that so many of you now are opposing it and speaking out against it and coming forward and wanting to educate people and inspire people, and even just get it off your chest and to just share it. And so I thank you too, Madison, for your bravery and your courage for, speaking on these really vulnerable moments in your life, and people that really should have been there for you, and should have been protecting you, and for helping to educate people on, how coercive abuse can be.
Mm-hmm. You inspire me, you really do. The more that I see people like you making a difference, it inspires me to make a difference and inspires me to like take action. So yeah, the feeling is mutual. Um, I just thought of something when you were talking. I just wanted to quickly say too about um, these projects that my dad would work on, like how the chameleon project could have actually been like an assignment, a project to abuse me and my twin sister and like to abuse other kids, and create these like chameleons in society, um, because you become a people pleaser and you become like somebody who molds, into whatever situation. He told me that, well, he told me that the CIA recruited him so he told me this when I was 20. He said the CIA recruited him because he is able to like turn off when they need him to and turn back on when they need him to. So they look for people like that who are like narcissists, essentially, sociopaths. Like he said they love sociopaths. He said that um, not everybody can kill somebody and keep on completing their mission. Most people freak out and when they get blood on them, and they they can't, whereas he could just turn off and just focus on what needed to be done and get it done. So I mean, that right there tells me that he was an assassin for the CIA. And then another thing that he said to me too was, after he would abuse me, he would say things sometimes, and it was pretty rare that he would say these things, but I it was so strange that I remembered it and then like just stuffed it away in the back of my mind and thought like, we're just gonna put this on a shelf. I've always been about like, okay, we don't know what this means. Let's just put this here for now and we'll figure out what it means later. Maybe we'd never figure out what it means, but that's kind of the way I analyze things, the way I process things. And he said, I don't want to do this to you. They're making me do this to you, and I don't want to do this to you anymore. Um, and I said, well, then just don't do it. Like, and I also thought to myself, who's they? Is that the CIA, demons, your customers? Like, I don't know who's they. That's my question. Um, and so I said, just don't do it then. And he said, it's not that simple. They're giving me a lot of money.
Do you
And
remember
then
any of the other
did
projects?
he did talk about adrenochrome. I do remember him talking about that because he said my adrenochrome was different than everyone else's, and that's why they were interested in me. And I said, what? Like, I didn't even know what adrenochrome was. And um I said, I just remember saying, like, what? Like, I was really confused. I was only like, let's see. I had to have been like 5 at this time. Maybe I was a little older. It's hard for me to remember how old I was during this time because like, I should say, too, like, I know I went to the first grade. Obviously, I graduated from the first grade and went on to the second grade, but I can't, there, like, that whole school year, I don't remember. But I remember the school year of kindergarten. I remember the school year of second grade. So there's like a lot of trauma that happened in that time where I blocked out a lot of stuff. And he said, you are different, and it's because yours regenerates. Like, we can't take it from you. It comes back. And that's why they're interested in you. And I feel like this chameleon project that with that business card that I saw is somehow gifted kids that they're choosing because and they're gifted and it's somehow connected to their adrenochrome and the fact that it keeps on regenerating and they can't take it from these kids.
Do you by chance know your blood type?
Um, O positive?
Okay. I would ask anybody that's listening if you guys have heard of this, if this has been a part of your story, or else if you guys have heard somebody else talk about that, about the regeneration of it and that it can't be taken. I'd be curious to see what people's feedback is on that and if they've also been told or have heard that as well.
Because from what I learned about adrenochrome, and this isn't from my dad, this is just from me seeing other people's coming forward, is it's like something they need for their real ritualistic purposes, and it gives them like power, youth, money. Like, that's even my father at one point told me that that's the point of life is youth, power, and money. And I said, no, it's about love. And he said, no, it's about power, youth, and money. So I know that it's something they use for those purposes, but I'm still new to this. I still don't know what it is. I still don't know how they extract it. I still don't know how they even figure out that it can regenerate. Like, I have so many questions too.
Absolutely. And myself and others listening, can help maybe fill in some of those gaps. I think we're all on a quest of really understanding and getting down to the who's, when's, where's, what's, and why's of these different things, and luckily there's a lot of information out there now to where we can maybe start putting these puzzle pieces together and seeing these things on all the different levels that these perpetrators do, because there really is so many different layers to these things that they partake in or the organized abuse that they do. It's very systematic, very organized, very like you said, ritualistic. And it's intentional. It's not just like random
Yes,
things.
it's strategic. They plan it out. And my dad is also really good, but I guess it's because chess is a game that requires strategy and outsmarting your opponent. And that's what he's very good at doing, is outsmarting people, and um, brags about it. Like,
Oh my goodness. Yeah, your story has so many different pieces to it, Madison. And I know that we covered a lot today, and I know that there's still more to talk about. So I'd love to invite you on to do a part two and, talk about some of these more positive things in your life. And we can touch on them here at the end because some of the positive things you share on social media, which is really cool. Your mission and some of your talents that we didn't talk about a lot today that I talked about in the intro very, very briefly. But you have such a beautiful story of, trying to get justice and the steps that you've taken, and some of the evidence we didn't show today either. Those forms that you had sent me screenshots of. So I'd love to go over that next time and talk more about not necessarily like exactly the present, but just leading up to the present, sort of get moving away from that, your healing journey, getting
mhm.
justice, and then sort of like where you want to go with this, because I feel like there's this really beautiful purpose that's coming as a result of this and starting to blossom out of you, and you're starting to get in alignment of not not a purpose of being super happy that you went through all of this by any means, but a purpose that's aligned with this happened to me and I want to prevent it from happening to anybody else. Let's
Yes,
talk about
absolutely.
let's talk a little bit about that and your social media. You're a singer.
Well, for starters, my social media is pretty much like, hey, here's my music. And also, the CIA is the most highly funded terrorist organization.
I love it. It's the best.
Like, they're literally using our taxes to fund terrorism. Like, why are we even paying our taxes? That's my question. But that's kind of more of my TikTok. I'd say my TikTok is more calling out the government, and I do believe in government, but I think the power should be in the hand, like we should give as little power to the government to prevent things like this. My Instagram is more positive. It's I try to keep it more positive just because I have more people that I know on my Instagram, whereas my TikTok is more, it's my TikTok is kind of going viral right now. I had a video get 300,000 views, and a lot of people on my TikTok are people that I don't know, but who have like followed me because they're passionate about this, and they want to see me get justice, which is really nice. And like, I have thousands of people circulating my story, people calling the Department of Justice, people like trying to do what they can. And even if it's just liking or commenting or sharing, it's still helping me to get media attention. And like, I'm so grateful for that, because like, my goal is to stop this stuff from happening so that no one ever has to come on to a podcast and feel like the way that I do and feel crazy, like, and be worried about like being seen as like this crazy menace to society. Like, not saying that your podcast is a, I'm not insulting your podcast at all. Like, to know you, but I just don't think that it's something that we should even have to do. Like,
Exactly.
like, and it's something that you should even have to do. Like, Emma, you shouldn't be up late at night. Like, it's 9:40 p.m. for me. I have work tomorrow. I know you're ahead of me, right?
Yep, 2 hours ahead of you.
Yeah, you shouldn't be up at 11:40 p.m. It shouldn't be an issue, period. And like,
Yeah.
that's what I hope is, and pray for, is like I can get enough media attention, fame, wealth, whatever, and help, and like join this cause to stop this. Um cuz there's so much that needs to be done, and stuff I'm not even sure, like, how do we even do this? I know there's laws that need to be put in place, and like, I believe there needs to be an organization that intervenes, and when the government is involved, or if it's like the, the witness is, or sorry, not the witness, if the victim is saying like, hey, there are people of status, people of wealth, people of power involved, then this organization needs to get involved and to be like this third party to support the victim. And like that's kind of what I have in mind for this foundation that I'm starting with my royalties called The Bridge. And not only that, but I just want it to be a resource for kids who have been trafficked who need a home, kids who and like any way that we can like pour back into these kids and give them a fighting chance because they deserve it and they deserve like a good education and they deserve like a safe place to live and like a place that can like encourage them and empower them and like amazing teachers who can uplift them and like I want to give them the not the upbringing that I had but like the gifts that I had along the way of like teachers who truly were able to work with me one on one and like help me to just like support them in any way that we can. Um, even if I can use this organization to get boots on the ground and like stop this and find children and say like anything I can do, like that's like the goal that I have like for this organization because there's so much that needs to be done. Like 1 million children go missing in the United States every year. That's more than any other country in the world. You can't tell me that we're the most developed country in the world and yet we have the most children that are going missing. Like, and that right there tells me too, the government's involved. Like, hello, if we're the most developed country in the world, why are 1 million of our children going missing? And why is it not being talked about in the media? Why is it being hidden from us? How come my videos are getting taken down when I talk like when I really name these elites and go into detail? It's like I'm in a community guidance violation. Um, and it gets taken down. I'm actually not even my account's been suspended, so I'm actually not even allowed to promote my posts for another 10 years
10
until
years.
2034. Because I had paid for one of my posts to get seen because I wanted it to blow up. The one of me holding my brother, I paid like it wasn't even that much too. It was like $50, I think, for it to get seen. And I've paid before to like promote my music and it got way more views. And I think I must have pissed off TikTok because I don't think they intended for me to get that many views on it. Um, and so they said that that I was in violation because uh, I was in violation of their advertisement policies or whatever.
Oh my gosh. I know that's the problem that I have with TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook is their very strict policing of talking about human trafficking. It's crazy. Like there's girls on here that are literally like just about naked and like they're fine. They get boosted.
Yes, and oh my gosh, I totally forgot about this too. My brother is on TikTok, and there was a time when, when I was living there, when I was like before I left, that I found him on TikTok and he was in his boxers and my parents were okay with it. He was like posting all these videos of him in his boxers and I said, you need to like monitor his TikTok or and you need to take these videos down. Like there are creeps on the internet. He shouldn't be you shouldn't be allowing him to be in his boxers on like that's weird. And they were like they were making it seem like I was the weird one. Like and they were like, "Well, Madison, like just let him post whatever he wants. He's always in his boxers anyways. Like what's the big deal? Like making me seem like I'm the creep and I'm like that's wrong. Like you, you as a like your reaction as a parent should be like um I want to keep my kids safe from predators on the internet, not like oh, it's fine that he's in his boxers online. Like, sorry,
Totally,
I'm
girl.
laughing. It's not funny. It's actually really, really sad. And I really care about my brother. And I'm I guess what I'm laughing at is just like the ridiculousness of it. Like it, it's just crazy. It's like you're crazy.
Exactly. Right. You're gonna let young people parade around naked and exploit themselves, but when you try to expose the exploitation that's happening in the world, you get blocked and banned and shut,
Right?
terminated, and it's just it's insane. It really is.
And like more than anything, I just want custody of my brother and I want him to be safe. And I want to hug him again. I haven't seen him in almost 4 years.
Oh,
Um, so like it's like yeah, I have all these visions. Yeah, I love music, but really like my goal is like my brother. Like that comes first above everything. Um I just like the moment he was born, I was 12 years old. I remember holding him and just saying to myself, I will fight for you. Like I will do everything in my power to keep others from harming you. And I don't even know if that's because of who I am or if that's because God called me to that. Like I would love to say like that's because of how great of a person I am, but it felt like it was literally like a tugging on my soul. Like I feel like that was God like for him. Um in the same way that my older sisters stepped in for me and like um raised me and taught me right from wrong and like showed me from their own example. I mean, the best thing they did for me was when they left because it showed me that that's because they were like my own really my only example of unconditional love and like showed me like that my family wasn't healthy. Oh, they are my family, but like my parents aren't healthy.
I think it's amazing what you're doing, Madison. You are so brave, and there needs to be some sort of justice because what your dad did was wrong, and maybe what he's still doing. There has to be a repercussion for that. However, I hope at some point he realizes that he can make the same decision that you did and walk away from it, get help, um, go through whatever the consequences are, repent, and heal. And same thing with the rest of your family too. I know that this stuff can be very hard to face. Who can blame people from being in denial of it or for not wanting to face it, but the point is there's a lot of people still hurting kids, and we have to speak out against that despite our personal feelings. And I really commend you for doing that because I know that this journey has to be really hard and really just sad and heartbreaking a lot of times for you, but I also hope that you get those glimmers of hope of getting, over 350,000 views on a video and to know that people hear you and that you're inspiring people, and I know that there's people on the other side of the screen today with this episode that need to hear what you're saying, and who are going to feel validated and courageous and less alone, and I love that you're sharing on social media. I think that's so hilarious. You're like, I share music and I expose the government, it's so badass. I love it. And for people who are just listening, if you don't have a screen up, on TikTok and Instagram, it's Madison Clares, which is Clares is spelled Clares dot music. Madison Clares dot music on both platforms. I'll have in the show notes, but just in case you guys are able to get in the app right now and want to go search it, you guys can go ahead and connect with her there. And Madison, I'd love to have you back on to go a little bit deeper into some of the more current years of your life and what this journey has looked like for you since leaving. But was there anything else that you wanted to talk about today before we wrap up?
Um, not that I can think of. Thanks for having me on here and I intended for this to be way more organized and I just let it go with the flow and
It was perfect.
hopefully it made sense. So yeah, and I would love to come back on too, Emma. I adore you and I think what you're doing is amazing and like I can't say